Apple Aqua, Windows Aero, and now Apple Liquid Glass. What do these releases, a quarter of a century apart, have in common? Glass is at the center of it all. What is it about this material that makes tech giants return to it again and again? Glass refracts light, blurs space, distorts shapes, and creates reflections. It's constantly changing. And each of these qualities reveals something profound about our perception, our psychology, and our human nature. But here's the strange thing. Glass is not part of our evolutionary environment. Unlike the gradients of a sunset or the blur at the edge of our vision, glass is an artificial material that humanity encountered relatively recently. Our instincts were formed without it. So why does it captivate us? Research shows that even infants instinctively reach for its shine. A scientist proposed this is an echo of our oldest instinct. We are drawn to glossy, shimmering surfaces because they resemble water, the key to survival. Steve Jobs may not have read those studies, but in 2000, he intuitively tapped into this primal trigger when he decided to create an interface you'd want to lick. This video is an attempt to understand this strange attachment. We will trace the 25-year history of glass in interfaces from its birth as an edible metaphor to its fall under the weight of its own ambitions, and finally to its triumphant yet contradictory return. We'll explore why iOS 7 wasn't actually flat and why glassmorphism is a term that risks missing the point. This is a story of how the battle for pixels on a screen reflects our own deeply human nature. In 2000, digital interfaces were utilitarian, gray boxes built for function, not feeling. The computer was far from being in every home. For instance, only half of US households owned one. For most people, it was still a complex and intimidating machine. And then Steve Jobs took the stage and delivered what became a manifesto.
And we call that new user interface Aqua because it's liquid. One of the design goals was when you saw it, you wanted to lick it.
This was no exaggeration. The inspiration for Aqua came from Candy and Gel. It was a design aimed not at the intellect, but at a visceral response. And here lies the first piece of our puzzle. The industry's first love for glass had nothing to do with glass itself, but with its imitation of things more familiar to us. Sweets, liquids, drops of water. Unlike glass, these are part of our anthropological reflexes. Aqua's elements weren't transparent, they were tactile. Their smoothness begged to be touched. Apple leveraged an ancient instinct to make the new, complex world of computers feel safe and desirable. Aqua wasn't about glass as a window, it was about glass as candy. But what would happen when the industry tried to turn this metaphor into real, transparent physics? And what is the cost of digitizing light? Microsoft saw the power of Aqua. They understood that a desirable material was a powerful competitive advantage, and in 2007 they introduced Windows Aero. It was a direct successor to Aqua's idea of tactility, but with one key difference. The glass became transparent. Now it wasn't just candy glass, but window glass. For the first time, millions of users saw real, translucent, blurred panels on their screens. Contemporary reviews were mixed. Journalists called the design gorgeous and futuristic, but immediately pointed out its main flaw: it was unbearably heavy. But the problem wasn't just technological. Aero offered no new concept of interaction. It was merely a visual layer on top of the same old Windows paradigm, a magical but single, infinite, two-dimensional plane. The transparency created a side effect of depth, but it didn't change the fundamental physics of the system. Moreover, in the pursuit of detail, Microsoft violated Aqua's core principle of absolute smoothness. Where Aqua was soft and organic like a drop of water, Aero was crystalline and sharp like a shard of ice. It didn't invite touch, it provoked anxiety. Aero's failure showed that simply adding transparency wasn't enough. But while the drama of Vista unfolded on desktops, a real revolution was happening on another front. The center of the universe was shifting to mobile devices. How would the idea of glass survive in a world where hardware power was 10 times weaker? It's widely believed that in 2013, with the release of iOS 7, Apple killed depth and ushered in the era of flat design. But this is one of the biggest misconceptions in UI history. The only truly flat interface was Microsoft's Metro. It was a logical extension of their idea of a single, infinite digital plane, visually interesting, but a failure in terms of intuitive navigation. But iOS 7 was not flat. In fact, it was more dimensional than its skeuomorphic predecessor. Yes, Apple removed the fake leather and wood textures, but it replaced them with a real, tangible sense of space. The flatness of individual icons and buttons was just a trick to emphasize the depth between the layers. And the main tool for creating this depth was the ghost of glass translucency and blur. Apple wasn't imitating objects, it was simulating the physics of space. Light, layers, depth of field, all things that are natural to our perception. Their main competitor, Google, took a similar path a year later with material design, but their magic paper was opaque and depth was created with shadows. Google consciously avoided glass. Apple, on the other hand, made its properties the foundation of its new language. To keep making deep dives like this completely ad-free, I've launched channel memberships. Members get every video several days early and without ad breaks. For instance, this one has been available to them since last Wednesday. They also get to influence future topics in our private community. If you value this work, I'd be grateful to have you as a member. Thank you. Apple didn't abandon depth, it reinvented it using the properties of glass without calling it glass. They created a new type of sensory navigation. But what do you call an effect that is simultaneously flat and dimensional? And what role would the design community itself play in this? The industry, having recovered from the trauma of Vista, began to cautiously bring back glass. Microsoft, in its Fluent design system, introduced Acrylic, a smart, context-aware version of Aero that would disable itself on low-power devices and in battery-saver mode. It was a thoughtful and mature step. And around the same time, the term glassmorphism exploded within the community. With all due respect to its author, Michał Malevich, this name, for all its popularity, risks missing the point. It only describes the external aesthetic, a blurred background and a thin border, but carries no semantic weight. Glassmorphism is not a philosophy, not a system, not a solution to a problem. It's just a style label. To call what Apple does glassmorphism is to completely misunderstand what's happening. The industry had learned to use glass wisely. But could Apple, the company that started this story, simply accept the existing rules? Or was it, as always, preparing to take the idea to its absolute logical extreme? A liquid glass is not just another trend, it is the culmination of a 25-year journey. It has the sensory desire of Aqua, the interface is once again inviting to the touch, responding with incredible detail. It has the spatial intelligence of iOS 7, it's a complex layered environment that helps you navigate information. And it has the technological ambition of Aero, but this time it's backed by hardware that can actually deliver on the promise. And most importantly, liquid glass returns to its anthropological roots. The transparency, the refractions, the physics of a liquid, this is once again a reference to water, to something we intuitively understand. Yes, the public beta is not perfect. There are issues with accessibility and contrast, but don't be fooled. Look at the level of craftsmanship, the way every control, every toggle lives and breathes. This is not just a style, it's a new level of craft in system design that we have not seen before. The philosophy of liquid glass is simple to erase the boundary between the software and the device. The glass of your phone is the interface. So why do we, creatures who never knew glass in our evolutionary cradle, gravitate so strongly toward it on our screens? Throughout our journey, we've assembled the answer from several parts. First, it was a sensory trap. Our attraction began not with glass itself, but with its glossy surface, which our brain, shaped by millions of years of evolution, instinctively associates with water, with life. Aqua pulled the deepest of triggers. Second, it became a cognitive tool. Later, when glass became transparent, its physical properties blur, and layering proved to be the perfect way to organize visual chaos. It helps our brain separate the important from the secondary to focus without losing context. And third, it became the ideal metaphor. A metaphor for the relationship we want to have with technology. We want it to be powerful but invisible, always available but never intrusive. Glass is that invisible barrier, a window into the digital world that can change its properties to serve us. Here's the distilled answer. We are drawn to glass because it masterfully combines a primal sensory lure with a sophisticated cognitive tool, all wrapped in the perfect metaphor for our digital age. The path from Aqua to liquid glass is the story of us trying to make our technology less alien. First we made it look like candy, then like Windows, and now we are making it part of our world. Liquid, responsive, and almost invisible. By the way, this video is ad-free thanks to my channel members. They get videos early and help choose new topics. If you'd like to join them, the link is in the description. But for all its beauty, liquid glass has major problems right now. The balance between a technological breakthrough and real-world flaws is one of the worst in Apple's history. And the final version of iOS 26 could define the direction of the entire design industry for the next few years. Why? Find out in my video, Apple Designed the Reflection That Ended an Era.